Presented by T-Mobile, the official wireless partner of Odyssey Sports. With an awesome network and great savings, there's never been a better time to join T-Mobile. Visit your neighborhood store to make the switch today.
People notice each other more when it's cold outside. Jen loved that answer. She was asking a potential new friend what her favorite thing was about Detroit. The potential new friend gave her an answer she had not expected. It felt like such an astute observation. One she would have never had if she hadn't moved across the country. Yes, it was cold in the winter. She left a place that was never cold for a place that was very cold right now. Normally, people did the opposite. Most people leave the cold for the warmth as a means to extend their life and happiness. But when you grow up in Tuscan and your summer heat exceeds 110 degrees on a regular basis, you might be looking for a little shade. Plus, she never tanned well. Her friends would tan. Jen would burn. And then there was the real reason for her move. The only real reason. The guy. She moved for a guy. People assumed they would get married. It felt inevitable in everybody's eyes. There had been no proposal, even after 5 years together. They were approaching 30, the only ones in their college friend group who hadn't gotten married yet. It seemed as if they wouldn't survive together. They knew that. So when he told her that he was going to move away for a job, he knew there was a chance that it was over and that this could be the reason for their end. When she asked if he wanted her to come with him, he responded by getting down on one knee and asked her if she wanted to be his wife. They committed to each other in a way that neither had previously. Things between them were looking great, full of promise and potential, until they got to their new home. It only took 6 months for the relationship to end once they arrived in Detroit. There was a newfound pressure which suffocated whatever passion had previously existed between them. They thought that getting married would reignite their love, but instead, the engagement diffused it. If getting married would set them back, what would having kids do? They knew that their future together was brief, so it was only a matter of time until it ended. Then the question became, who would say it first? That they would no longer be together. It was Jen. They had gone to see a movie, some dumb action movie. In their younger years, they would enjoy going to see a bad movie with nobody else in the theater, so that they could make fun of it and laugh out loud. But today was silent. Nobody spoke. Clearly, the impending end of them as a couple was weighing heavy. Right as he was about to start the car up after they left, Jen said they need to talk. About them. Their future. Did they have a future? Together? Had they made a mistake? With great pain but respectful appreciation, he agreed. Both of them said that they still cared deeply for the other. Yet it felt as if they were going through the motions. So, after 5.5 years together, it was finally over. For Jen, the question became where to go. She had to move out of this house which he had bought for them. He had earned it. She had come here on his terms. He wanted to get out of Tuscan. She didn't. But she did it for him. Now that Jen could go back, she refused. She could picture it, and it made her sick. The idea of moving back home as a loser. She would have to explain what happened to everyone who asked why she was back, why it didn't work. So she opted against that and decided to stay in Detroit. This felt exciting. A fresh start and a new home. Her mother was nervous, as were some of her college friends, whom all thought that maybe she should at least go to a different city, get some breathing room between him and her. But Jen didn't see it that way. She saw it as a sign. Detroit was a city trying to rebuild, just like her. There was a connection to this city that Jen felt could not be ignored. Until the bruise. What happened to your arm? Jen was surprised by the question being asked by her potential new friend. A new neighbor from down the hall would occasionally see Jen outside while getting their mail. Jen wasn't even sure where to look first. And then she saw it, above her elbow, a small purple bruise. Her answer that she didn't know was slightly alarming to her new potential friend/neighbor. But Jen seemed to dismiss it, since the bruise didn't hurt and she hadn't even noticed it. The new neighbor/potential friend wanted to be supportive without being accusatory, since they had only met the week before. So she asked Jen when was the last time she had seen her ex. Jen had to cover her mouth from laughing. No, she assured the new potential friend/neighbor. He would never hit her. He was a very sweet, timid guy. Also, she hadn't seen him in over a month. She must have knocked it while moving furniture and unpacking at her new apartment. Jen thought nothing of it, so the new potential friend/neighbor thought almost nothing of it. When you don't know someone that well, it can take a minute to decide whether or not they're being truthful. Jen's laughter at the question of whether or not her ex-fiancé had been abusive seemed to suggest that this was not the case. So that was that. Until Jen found a second bruise. A bigger bruise. Iron deficiency. That's probably the culprit. My aunt has a similar thing. Iron deficiency, Jen thought? What an old person affliction to have. Her Google search on the subject reiterated what a new coworker told her, that this may in fact be an iron deficiency. The new bruise, this time on her leg, had also gone unnoticed and did not hurt. Odd, she thought. Jen's second new potential friend was a fellow bartender at a restaurant Jen had been lucky enough to secure a job at during her first week of her move to Detroit. It was meant to be a temporary gig until she found something more long-term. When that would be remained to be seen. A background in teaching, she had moved across the country without a job in place. Jen assumed finding a new school to work at wouldn't be difficult, considering her resume and the need for educators in Detroit was increasingly high. For now, at least, she'd be serving drinks instead of teaching history. In her spare time, she would be wondering about whether or not she was getting enough iron. She asked her mother if this has ever been a thing in their family. The mother said no, and then began flooding Jen's emails with links about how to get more iron. Jen had always been a runner. So had her ex. It was one of their favorite shared interests. Lately, she had noticed that her endurance had decreased. Back in Tuscan, she could run 30-40 miles a week. In Detroit, she would become winded after a 2-3 mile run. This, more than the lack of iron, was slightly alarming. She could feel this shift in her body. Her old lady body. Lean proteins, healthy fats, electrolytes. These are some of the things patrons at the bar/restaurant began to tell her when eavesdropping on Jen's conversation with her coworker about how she had been feeling more tired lately. She didn't need health tips. She knew them already. Her diet hadn't changed. Maybe it was the weather? Tuscan was one of the hottest places in the United States. Detroit was much more seasonal. It's the weather, Jen's coworker told her. Case closed. That made sense to Jen, even if the lack of exercise was affecting her mood. And then one morning, she woke up and got a nosebleed. Everything looks good. That's what Jen's new Detroit doctor told her after getting a physical. Jen went through these new symptoms, and the doctor told her it was probably stress. Clearly, she has had some drastic life changes recently. It's only natural for her body to tense up. The doctor advised Jen to find ways to help her relax. Exercise, yoga, meditation, reading, swimming. All of those sounded nice. But Jen knew what she really needed. She needed to get laid. His name began with an R. That's about as much as Jen remembered when she woke up the next morning and saw him snoring in her bed. What little she had recalled from the night before was not great. It certainly wasn't an experience to help relieve stress. If anything, her anxiety was higher than ever. She was having trouble breathing. Jen went outside to get some fresh air and do a quick walk around the block until she felt a pain in her eye. Using her cell phone as a mirror, she could see her left eye was red and swollen. Oh my God, Jen thought. Is that a sty? It looked like a pimple on her eyelid. Jen was grossed out and feeling stuck. She had no desire to go back into her tiny apartment and converse with the man whose name started with an R. Or a P? She met him the night before at some sports bar, and it could not have been easier to get him back to her place for what she could loosely remember being an unsatisfying adult sleepover. Now she had another health thing to monitor. Her disgusting eyelid. Until she got a text. He's not well. The he was obvious. She didn't have to ask her sister who the he was. In an act to create some distance, Jen had deleted her social media accounts. Better to make a clean break from the ex than to have access from something that allowed her to check in on him. This did not apply to Jen's younger sister, who apparently had been keeping tabs. Jen was annoyed, but also sympathetic. What if it's serious, she thought. So she texted her sister. What does that mean? The sister sent a picture. It was true. He did not seem well. Skinny, much skinnier, with these big bags under his eyes. His hair seemed to be thinning, and he was holding a cane. Why does he have a cane? What happened to him? I don't know, her sister said. But he looks bad, right? The cane wasn't the worst part. At least not to Jen. No, the worst part about the picture through Jen's one good eye were the bruises. On both of his arms, he had deep purple bruises. Maybe you should check in? Jen was annoyed at this suggestion. He wasn't her responsibility. She began to type angrily until thinking better of it, and then deleted what was going to be an angry all-caps response. More than his health, she thought of her health. Had they contracted something together? It had been over a month with no contact. By checking in, this would allow her to compare symptoms and get a better understanding of what was happening to her body. Maybe the answer was simple. She sent him a text. It was just one word. Hey. He was walking with a limp. The culprit of his limp was unknown. He said he woke up a couple of days ago and felt a shooting pain in his leg. Went to the doctor, who said the x-ray seemed normal. They did the blood work. That was normal too. It's probably just stress, the doctor told him. That was a simple answer, and he figured it would get better soon. But it hadn't. The pain has actually been getting worse, and today he woke up with the other leg not feeling right. That, along with these bruises, and now he had this sty thing. Me too, Jen blurted, alarming the other customers, while taking off her sunglasses to compare the disgusting eyelids. Ew, yours is way grosser than mine, he said. Hogwash, Jen replied. Yours looks like a Dario Argento movie. They were laughing. It had been the first time Jen had laughed in what felt like a long time. His laugh was very contagious and sweet. It was one of Jen's favorite things about him. The laugh. His face would get really red and he'd grab his belly. She missed that. She missed him. It wasn't until now that it became so obvious. He confessed that he had been very stressed lately, and it was very nice to see her. Uh-oh, she thought. This is how it starts again. It was crowded in the coffee shop, so they decided to go for a little walk. This little walk turned into a long walk. A coffee turned into a meal. A catch-up conversation turned into spending the night together. This time, when she woke up the next morning and saw him lying there, she wasn't filled with dread or anxiety. She was filled with calm and comfort. It felt like home. She was back in the house that she had left behind. He hadn't gotten any new furniture since she had left. When she asked why he still hadn't bought any of the stuff they said he would buy, he said, "It didn't seem important." That stung. It stung to say, and it stung to hear. But then he said something else to break the weight of that moment. Your eye. It looks normal. Jen checked herself out in the mirror. Her eye had in fact appeared to be normal. Thank God, she thought. That hideous thing was finally gone. When they walked downstairs to have some coffee, she told him that he wasn't limping, to which he replied, "Well, you were always good about keeping me limber." Jen squinted and said it was nice to see that he was still a loser, which made him laugh. As they sat there, it began to dawn on them that this was fleeting. They could see it in each other's eyes. It was a nice night, but it couldn't be anything more than that. Not if they wanted to move on. He told her he was thinking of selling the house in a year once the value went up. She told him that as much as she liked Detroit, the idea of starting somewhere fresh was appealing. It took considerable effort on both parts not to cry, but they held fast. It was almost more heartbreaking than the original breakup. This time, it really felt as if they knew what they were leaving behind. The hug goodbye was long, the longest hug they ever shared. But the feeling of closure felt real this time. They would be truly going their own way.
Presented by T-Mobile, the official wireless partner of Odyssey Sports. With an awesome network and great savings, there's never been a better time to join T-Mobile. Visit your neighborhood store to make the switch today.
What's up, little psychos? I'm Investigator Slater, host of the Psychopedia podcast. Psychopedia is a true crime podcast delivering raw, real, and absolutely gripping episodes every single week. I dig deep to uncover fascinating details of heinous true crime cases while exploring criminology and psychology theories. I take you into the absolute darkest corners of the human psyche, my favorite territory, and present cases like you've never heard them before. Follow and listen to Psychopedia everywhere you get your podcasts.
The question isn't why New Zealand. The question is why not New Zealand? That's what Jen told her family as she was packing. She went to college in her home state and had always dwelled on the fact that she hadn't taken a bigger risk in her youth. She was so envious of people who had moved far away from home and were able to grow into a new, better version of themselves. Whereas she just kind of felt the same. Moving to New Zealand on a whim was exhilarating. After 3 months of bartending, working as many shifts as she could grab, living well beneath her means, she was able to save up some cash and head across the globe without any agenda. She would simply walk off the plane and discover a new life. A new her. New Zealand was certainly scratching that itch of regret which had plagued Jen for the past decade. She knew nobody in this new country of hers. Everything was an adventure. She was able to find an apartment for a modest price and even found a job teaching part-time at a library. It would hold her over until she could find something more sustainable. Dating wasn't even a priority, although she did enjoy meeting men who were so different from the guys she had met in Tuscan and then briefly in Detroit. She worked weekends at a bar, which became her social circle. Occasionally, she would let her co-workers set her up on a date, or she might meet someone at a party. It was all new, it was exciting, and it was all her alone. Until her lip fell off. A very polite New Zealand man, whose name started with a B, had just kissed her goodnight. Rather than invite him in, she felt something odd on her face. His eyes nearly exploded from fear. When he covered his mouth and pointed and said, "Your lip, it fell off." This was true. On the ground, by Jen's feet, was her bottom lip. She picked it up and held it in her trembling hand, staring at it in disbelief. She was so horrified that she passed out in shock. When she woke up, she was in a hospital. The polite man, whose name started with a B or a C, was sitting nearby, very anxious. He tried reassuring Jen that everything seemed okay. The doctors were still consulting, but they said it didn't seem to be anything serious. Jen, through muffled bandage on her face, said, "Serious? My lip fell off." She was kept overnight for observation, but the doctors chalked it up to stress. The body can lash out when we put too much tension into it. They assured her that her blood work was fine, so there was nothing to be worried about. She was too horrified to go to work looking like this until her plastic surgery appointment in a week. Until then, she would be a hermit, pacing in her apartment, trying to understand how someone's lip could fall off from stress. While Googling potential solutions, she began to feel a ringing in her ear. When she gave it a little tug, it fell off. Jen was now holding her left ear in her right hand. Once again, she passed out. It was night by the time Jen woke up next to her ear. Apparently that was real. It was not a nightmare. As she took it over to her bathroom for a closer inspection, she began to feel a sharp pain in her knee. It was so painful she couldn't walk. She had to hop. And then at her lowest point, she got a text. "You might want to call him." Why is he in a wheelchair? Her sister said she didn't know. He had deleted his social media, so she couldn't secretly keep tabs on him, an activity which Jen had forbade her to do. This picture of her ex in a wheelchair was from a different person's Instagram account, a group of friends celebrating a birthday at a bowling alley. And there he was, in a wheelchair, with only one ear. Jen was yelling at her sister to get some intel and find out what happened. The sister was asking Jen why she sounded funny. Had she gotten braces? Jen didn't have the energy to tell her the truth, so she told her it was just allergies. Her mind and heart were racing. What was wrong with him? What was wrong with her? If she had what he had, wouldn't she be in a wheelchair soon? How come he still had his bottom lip? Who was this person texting her, asking if she was all right? "It's Jeremy from last night," the text added. Jeremy? Jen thought. That doesn't start with a B or a C. Jen was all cooped up in her apartment with nothing to do except for expect the worst and contemplate solutions. This bizarre illness had brought her to the most odd corners of the internet. For all her digging and deep diving, she was unable to find anything that could explain what she was going through. She tried eating to settle herself down, but when she bit into an apple, her 2 front teeth snapped in half. Jen passed out. Again. For the 3rd time in 2 days. Her head was beginning to feel concussed from continuously hitting the ground. She began to look up how much it would cost to get rubber floors. Anything to distract her from this impending sense of doom. Her little sister was right. She had to call him. It was the only way to know. So she did. And he picked up. "It's nice to hear your voice," he said. Followed by, "Did you get braces?" She said that her sister saw a picture of him in a wheelchair and she wanted to make sure that he was okay. He said that he was, kind of. The doctors checked him out and everything appears fine. Except for the fact that he's lost all feelings in his legs. They told him it was probably stress. He had to take a leave of absence from work and now he's all alone all day expecting the worst and contemplating solutions. For someone who was very social and worked as a firefighter, this was torturous. He felt worthless, in a dark place. There was a long silence. She was trying to make sure that he didn't hear her weird, muffled tears. When she wiped them away, she saw blood on her fingers. Her tears were made of blood. And that sty, that disgusting Dario Argento-level sty, it was back. And bigger. Much bigger. It looked ready to explode. To break the silence, he told Jen that he was very happy when he heard that she had moved to New Zealand. "Adventure is great for the soul," he told her. She was still laying on the ground when she said it. She knew that she shouldn't, but that wasn't going to stop her from saying it anyway. In that moment, it seemed like the only possible thing to say. Anything else wasn't an option. So she said it. "You should come." "I love the accents." Jen agreed. The New Zealand accents were delightful. Like Australian, but with a little twist. Jen was wheeling her ex around town, dressed like an Islamic fundamentalist so that nobody would be able to see all of her horrendous mutations. She showed him the sights and sounds. His spirits seemed to be picking up. Hers too. Even though she had lost all feeling in her left foot, which made walking very difficult. They had to move at a snail's pace. That made them savor everything more. The rat race of their previous life was now slowed down. Moments felt longer. Time seemed to stretch in ways that it never had before. When they got back to Jen's apartment and they were laying in bed together, he slowly took off her garb, and then the bandage around her face. He told her how beautiful she looked. Jen asked him if they should have sex. He said he would love to, but he had lost all feeling in his crotch, and both of his testicles had fallen off. Jen, because she was clinically deaf at this point, thought that he had said yes, so she kissed him. Hard. Not so much because of passion, but because she had no lips and wasn't sure if they were kissing or not. Even though most of their body organs had shut down, they were still able to keep each other warm. When Jen woke up, the morning sun hit her face, and she heard a flush from the nearby bathroom. A bit groggy, she sat up, alarmed. He stopped, concerned, seeing the fear in her ears. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" She just pointed. At his legs. He was standing, frozen. He began to pat himself down like a security guard, seeing if he had feeling. He did. He was spinning in circles and then walking around the room until he stopped. He felt something. Now it was her turn to ask what was wrong. He slowly pulled his shorts down and looked down. "My... what?" Jen asked. "They're growing back." Jen heard that. She definitely heard that. Then she reached up to her face. Her ears. ears seemed to be growing back too. They both ran to the bathroom mirror. They were patting themselves down, amazed at the resurgence which seemed to be flowing throughout both of their bodies. They had not just come back, they seemed to come back stronger, tighter, tanner. "You're tan," he said. To save money, Jen bought a cheap bed. It did not survive the night. Neither did her couch, or the rug. The morning turned to night, and the day turned into a weekend. Their bodies were interlocked, beyond passion, a craving that felt divine, as if they had achieved a higher power. Their neighbors knocked on the door at one point because they thought that he was killing her. They told them, while naked, that no, they were both very much alive, more alive than they have ever been before. After shattering their record for the most times in one day, they began to keep a tally. How far could they push their bodies into each other? The answers seemed to be infinite. It wasn't until a full week later, when they were sitting on the beach, staring at the ocean, holding hands, that reality shot right through them. No matter what they want, no matter who they are stuck together.
Presented by T-Mobile, the official wireless partner of Odyssey Sports. With an awesome network and great savings, there's never been a better time to join T-Mobile. Visit your neighborhood store to make the switch today. Presented by T-Mobile, the official wireless partner of Odyssey Sports. With an awesome network and great savings, there's never been a better time to join T-Mobile. Visit your neighborhood store to make the switch today.
Hi, I'm PJ Vogt, and I want to tell you about my podcast, Search Engine. We try to make sense of the world, one question at a time. No question too big, no question too small. We will even answer your questions if you send them in. Stuff like, what happens when a cemetery goes out of business? What should we do about teens using AI to do their homework? Who buys luggage at the airport luggage store? Follow and listen to Search Engine in partnership with Odyssey, wherever you get your podcasts.